What is an ESG fund? What is it?
Well, ESG stands for Ethical Sustainable Governance. What does that even mean?
It gets a bit weird. Let's look at the first ever example of ethical, sustainable governance investing. And way back in the 1800s, there was a group of investors that decided they weren't going to invest in businesses that used slaves. That's the first ever example of someone saying, I don't like what that business does, so I won't invest in it. That was the first ever example. But in the modern day, it's changed completely.
They've evolved over the years, and now the funds strip out companies that don't fit certain criteria. So there's companies with certain products that are excluded, the so-called vice products, which is smoking, alcohol, gambling, adult entertainment.
All the good stuff.
Non-renewable energy. So nuclear power, coal, oil and gas.
And then finally, weapons, chemical, biological, cluster munitions, all sorts of stuff like that, bad stuff. Basically, they take the standard index fund and then they strip out all of these different companies.
They also take out companies that are a little bit naughty.
No one likes naughty companies.
So they're corrupt, they don't look after the environment, they violate human rights, they don't look after their workforce, or they don't do well on board diversity and equal opportunities.
Which means maybe they have more men than women, or they don't promote certain people. They're just not great companies. Now, this is where it gets a bit confusing because the criteria are subjective. What does subjective even mean, Katie?
Subjective means that someone's made up what these criteria are.
They just made it up.
Someone's decided that these are the companies that should be removed from the fund because they aren't ethical, sustainable, or well governed.
And like alcohol's an interesting one because like I don't really have a problem with other people drinking. So why do I want it stripped out of the fund? Because there are some big alcohol companies that make lots of profit that we can benefit by owning. And let's bring this to life with a real example. Katie looked at the 10 biggest companies in the UK by market capitalisation, just means the size, how much they're worth. How many of those do you think were stripped from the fund under these criteria? How naughty is the UK?
Well, the answer is very naughty.
Very naughty.
Seven of the 10 companies are removed in the ESG fund.
Which you've got HSBC, Diageo, which makes a huge number of drinks, BP, British Petroleum, British American Tobacco, Rio Tinto, which is mining, and then two types of Royal Dutch Shell Company, which is again like oil and fossil fuel companies. 7 of the biggest companies are removed from the index under this. That means if you're investing in an ESG index fund, you're not benefiting from the profits from these companies, which if they're morally dubious, then maybe we shouldn't be.
But because these criteria are subjective, it means that ESG funds are a form of stock picking, meaning, oh, let's take those out, those out, those out, and a human has been involved in saying, we don't want these companies in this fund.
And stock picking always leads to worse performance. Always leads to worse performance. So do we recommend ESG funds?
No.
No, we do not. And actually, I'm not sure if they even really make a difference. So the first point is an ESG fund is stock picking, which we think is bad. The second point is we're not sure if it even makes a difference, because if a company is profitable, whether or not you invest in it doesn't actually make any difference, because they're out there making money and doing stuff. You will actually have a far greater impact by changing your spending than you will by changing your investing. Like if you want to stop a company trading, stop spending your money with them and they will soon change the way they act. And if you do that and then persuade lots of other people to stop spending money with them, they're going to stop trading that way.
Exactly. So to summarise, an ESG fund is a normal index fund with a lot of companies removed for the reasons that we outlined in the video. We have written an in-depth article about this.
There is a lot of detail. You spent months and months researching this one.
I spent many months researching this and making graphs and things. Please check out the article that we wrote, and we've put the link in the description.
and you will finally find out what an actual ESG fund is.